There was an attempt to make a podcast, and this is the attempt number 8. hmm And do you know what's so particular about this podcast? It's the day that this is being recorded. And this recording, well, two things. Number one, the date of this recording, and number two, the change of format. Number one, this is being literally recorded on February what? Yep, February 14th, 2026. And I'm about to go outside to ride my bike because staying at home during a Saturday night is not so bad, but you gotta balance that out. I'm going out to ride a bike a little bit. And also, in the past, I have made a bunch of recordings. I have made a bunch of videos in which I naturally record myself and I start reading comments from different Childfree posts from Reddit, whose comments I usually find super entertaining, super enjoyable, super irresistible, and I view them as an excellent source of learning, mindset expanding, and in a way, a silly source of wisdom, if you know what I mean. Alright, a lot of people could say something like, oh my god, what do you mean you're getting knowledge from a silly website like Reddit? And I say, yeah, Reddit can be both an absurd cesspit and an excellent source of knowledge that can help you solve cases. And I believe that in this episode of this particular podcast that is going to be only a voice recording. And when I'm editing this, I'm going to make sure that this is some sort of how can I say this? I will simply put whatever footage that I have in my, what do you call it? In my, I will put simply any of my footages that I normally use in my videos while I'm recording all these things, alright? The name of this episode is gonna be called You're Being Selfish. Here's what they mean. That's literally the title, and I'm gonna say that considering what it says and the name, it's basically people, well, child-free people. How can I say this? Child-free people analyzing the ridiculous statements and declarations from people with children, calling child-free people selfish. I would love to quote Marge Simpson from this quote in one of the most recent seasons of The Simpsons, which goes like this, and it's fantastic. That quote says, "How dare you live the life I would have wanted?" That's definitely what these idiots, these miserable, regretful parents, these miserable people with children, these miserable, regretful parents mean. It's like, how dare you live the life I would have wanted to live? And I'm gonna say like, sorry my dear, it's not my decision. This is the life I lead, and if you're jealous of it, too bad. Too bad. Moving on. In other news, oh yeah. This is gonna be hilarious because the post starts like this. They're talking about how your damn ancestors wouldn't be so proud of the decisions you've made in your life that make you happy. They talk about the lower birth rate, like, sure, come back after you fix the economy. They also bring up religion and how God made us to procreate. Basically, they selfishly want you to live a life that would make you miserable, which is what they mean. They want you to live their idea of the ideal life. They want you to live their idea of an ideal life, is what they mean. Once again, there's my pet peeve again. In which the people that write this type of posts do not use proper punctuation, commas and periods. Ugh. But yeah, I do agree with what you're saying though. Fuck these people. And then these same people would go on to blame genders or an entire generation because of the rise in people not wanting kids. Maybe you should go make kids your maybe you should go make kids your entire life to altruistically make up for those who don't, motherfucker. Yeah, I love that personally. And the first paragraph that was mentioned here, I couldn't agree with that more. Fix the economy first, and then I will gladly contribute to the population and the census, you know? And I'm gonna mention something that is going to sound a little bit evil, and that would be the fact that maybe we should let natural selection do its thing by just simply removing a lot of labels, signs, and other warning signs, and let common sense be a thing again. Me, for example, I know for a fact that I do not have a lot of common sense, but I am aware enough to know that I'm an idiot, I'm an ignorant, and I'm an ignoramus. However, ironically, I make sure I do not be a victim of the Donny-Kruger effect, in which I overestimate my own capacities, and I believe I'm the smartest person in the room, when in reality, I'm a human. Therefore, it is possible for me to make mistakes, to ignore things, not to know things, and most importantly, it is actually possible for me to be completely ignorant about a topic. Therefore, I do not talk about it totally seriously. And if I do and I do not know anything about that topic, I will make sure I clarify that I'm an expert on nothing and critic of everything. By the way, I'm literally translating a phrase that Franco Escamilla, the legendary Mexican comedian, uses to describe his show La Mesa Reñoña, the super geek table. In Spanish, he actually says originally, críticos de nada, no, expertos en nada y críticos de todo, which literally translates into expert of everything, no, expert in nothing, critic of everything. And that's the approach that people need to take wherever they make comments, silly or intelligent, online, and whenever having arguments or having conversations. I can totally say that I am not an expert on this topic, such as geopolitics, politics, history, protests, wars, and other conflicts, and other things, and even better, estrangement from parents that were objectively horrible to you, and now you have chosen, you have decided to just run away, run far, and become estranged from your parents because they were objectively horrible towards you. And also the second paragraph that says they selfishly want you to live a lifestyle that would make you miserable. That basically means something on the lines of misery loves company, or so I've heard. Fuck these people? Yeah, totally. They can go screw themselves over even more. And blaming something is easier than taking accountability for your actions. This is, by the way, applicable for both men and women, and I say that because there is an ongoing trend, ridiculous sometimes, well, a lot of the times, to say that women are allergic to taking accountability, but guess what? Men can also be like that. Otherwise, explain to me why there is a race on a lot of deadbeat fathers, fathers that abandon the child, abandon the woman and the child with whom, abandon the woman with whom they had a child, and they don't even bother to pay the slightest cent of child support in order to, well, support the child that they fucking created, to support the child that they conceived with that woman. And also, yeah, of course, when we're talking about this type of women that, according to this trend, accountability is their kryptonite or something like that, their weakness, that is absolutely both applicable for certain type of women, but at the same time is ridiculous, because you have to be fair. The same measurement that you use to measure one person should be used for everyone, and no exceptions should be made. That's enough of that part, alright? Now let us move on with the following part, which is a couple of comments in this particular post called "You're Being Selfish," in quotations, in quote marks. Here's what they mean. Comment number 1, and we're gonna read a lot, which says, comment number 1, It says, "Lol, I think my ancestors would be proud of me. I'm sure they'd live a life similar to mine if they had the option." Eh, as wonderful as this sounds, I would say that I disagree slightly because you don't know what they think, you don't know the way they used to think, you do not know the culture of your ancestors, and certainly you do not know what the life was like to the generation to the last three generations in your family tree, you know? To this one, another person replies, "I'm doing it for my ancestors who didn't have a chance and had to suffer." That sounds much better, alright? Especially for girls and women and ladies in the present, especially in the year that we are living right now, 2016. No, 2026, sorry, 2026. Especially for women living in this time and age in which now they can vote, they can wear jeans, they can wear pants, they can get married with whoever they want, they can study a degree, they can study a career, they can do pretty much whatever they want. Of course, there's still some prejudice to be defeated, especially this virus thinking propagated and spread out by people that want men and women to fight amongst each other, when in reality, we need each other. Men need women, women need men. Alright? It's mutual. It's a symbiote. And no, I'm not talking about venom. The next comment says, "Our grandmothers would." Oh yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Our grandmothers would. They literally say that maybe they wouldn't have kids earlier or not at all if they were born these days. I specifically don't mention our grandfathers because they were fine. They weren't the ones giving birth, and they weren't the ones giving birth when that was even worse than now. My grandmother always told me to study and marry later. Lol. I'm in my late 20s, and that hasn't changed. Sure, she doesn't want me to stay single, but she doesn't want me to get married and have kids. She just cares whether I learn something new today or not. That's wonderful! That's what I was talking about a couple moments ago, alright? For example, my grandmother, my grandmother who passed away, of course, she lived to the age of 104, and she was surrounded by a family that loved her, cherished her, and treasured her. But I'm pretty sure that if she could do it again, live her life, and choose not to have children, or encourage her kids not to marry as early as they did, or if she could choose not to have children, that wouldn't make her a bad person, alright? Sorry, that was me doing something in my throat. Same thing I have stated about my mother, whom I love, cherish, and treasure. If she could live her life again and choose not to have children, I wouldn't blame her, and that wouldn't make her a bad mother or a bad person. I was blessed and privileged to be born to a loving mother like her, and a loving father, even if flawed, like my dad, who passed away in the year 2002. I'm recording this in 2026. Answer number 2. It says, "Personally, I think it is selfish as fuck to be bringing children into this world, especially as an American. The scary politics, the gun violence, lack of healthcare, the shitty education, out of control inflation, and impossible job market. Sounds like inhospitable conditions to me. Why is bringing more children to this why is bringing more children to this mess seen as noble?" That's precisely what I was considering when I was reading Sorry, I was belching. When I was reading the initial part of this audio, which is... Sorry. The first part, which is fix the economy first, and then I might consider having a kid. And to be honest, I would say the same. Considering how bad the economy is, how expensive everything is, and how basically the current generation born after the 2005, the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha that is coming, they will find it impossible to buy a house. Therefore, I don't blame you if you don't want to have kids. If you want to marry and have kids, that's your decision and it is not my place to judge, alright? Even if I'm not religious, I'm gonna say something in the lines of only Jesus Christ and Jehovah are able to judge, alright? Because they are not human, therefore, let them judge. I'm not gonna do it. And you could be an atheist and ironically and unironically say that. Speaking of unironically, there is one type of unironic thinking or an unironic action, which is following someone that you despise. I am not that type of person because, well, there is one person, one content creator that I truly don't like. I truly don't like this person, whose name I'm not even gonna bother mentioning. Let's just say that without saying any names, you could say something like, rich manager refuses to rich manager refuses to pay his workers, lives to regret it. Without saying names, it could be anything. In fact, it could be thousands of people who fit this description. If the suit is too big, if the boot is too big, and no, if the suit suits you, or if the boot suits you, that's up to you. Not my problem. I did not say any name. I said no names. Let's continue. Back to the one that I was reading. Personally, I think it is selfish as fuck. And then number 2, to be bringing children into this world, especially as an American. The scary politics, the gun violence, the lack of healthcare, the shitty education, out of control inflation, an impossible job market. Sounds like inhospitable conditions to me. Why is bringing more children to this mess seen as noble? And then the other person says, because your kid could be the one to fix it all. I hope that was sarcasm, of course. Another person replies, or maybe themselves, but these people would rather offload the serious work to someone else. Precisely, because blaming someone else is far easier than taking responsibility for your own actions. Which is why I hardly ever do actions, because I don't want to be responsible for them. Just the bare minimum, and that's it. That's the perfect way to avoid responsibilities. And how to avoid accountability? Do no actions, don't do any bad actions, do no bad actions. I hope I used the proper grammar in that last sentence. Let us continue into story number 3. Reply number 3 that says, a male of 47 years old, American expat, says, my ancestors are dead. They don't care. Even if my living elders wanted me to have kids, they'd still be shit out of luck. And another person replies, heck, I can't even name any of my ancestors beyond grandparents. Just like me, I cannot even name the parents of my grandparents. I remember my mom's dad, my grandpa, alright, Don Manu, and my dad's dad, my grandpa, Don Lucio. Damn, did I love this man. Cómo amaba a mi abuelito. Cómo amaba yo a mi abuelito, la verdad. How much I loved that old man. The epitome of the loving grandparent. The epitome of the loving grandfather. That probably may not have been the best father, but loving grandfather, alright? Let's just say that Mr. Lucius was not blood related to my dad, but he was the grandfather because he was there for us and he raised us, which many idiots need to learn, alright? If your biological father separates from your mom and he decides not to have contact with you, that's it. Let it. And if your mom marries afterwards a new man that decides to be a father figure to you, you better appreciate that, alright? You better appreciate that. You better appreciate that. Even if they end up separating later, be grateful for the good times together. Like me and my stepdad, who I think ended things with my mom in a bad note. But that's a story for another day, alright? That is a story for another day. And when I'm telling that story, I need to make sure that my articulation and diction and lip movement is fluent and rather better, because I feel like I haven't been moving my lips enough. Anyway, let us continue, shall we? That was the number... Oh my god, I don't remember. 1. I already read this one. 2. 3. Let's move on to number 4. Good thing I don't give a shit about what other people think of me anymore. Their expectations are not my responsibility. And to that, someone else responds, yeah, I don't fully understand why people put so much energy into other people's thoughts. Just move on. You become more happier, when you realize that others' opinions are not a material thing that can hurt you. Sticks and stones, mumbies. Anyway, I'm off to go enjoy my downtime without your whoopsie accident ruining it, lol. Yeah, precisely. A healthy dose of indifference is necessary. A healthy dose of indifference. Keyword. Healthy dose of indifference, because you should care about your health. You should care about your eating well, and you should care about the people that care about you as well. All right? A little bit about love and entertainment and all that stuff. But yeah, a healthy doses of indifference is good. And that indifference should be directed towards whatever other people think of you. Make sure you reply, I couldn't care less. Besides, furthermore, additionally, it's not like you're a public figure who needs to take care of their image. Because you're a TV presenter, an actor, a teacher, a doctor, no, an entertainer, a performer, or stuff like that, and stuff like that. No, or something like that. That's what I mean. That was the story number 4. Let's move on to number 5, and it says, the concept of God means nothing to me, and the US economy isn't worth saving. Every reason they come up with invokes an oh, bless your heart, or a hey, the adults are speaking. Just another imaginary friend. And the next person replies to that, I'm the opposite. I'm quite a believer and I go to churches a lot. I said it in plural because I literally try to visit as many different churches as I can. That's why the concept of religion and Bill Childfree coexists well in my head. What does the Bible teach us? It tells us to show kindness. Breeding blindly when there is nothing you can provide for a kid isn't kindness. Oh, the Bible also tells us not to cheat. Why did I mention that? There is a trick many women have done or suggest that the other women do. When a husband is infertile but the couple wants a kid, they tell a woman to cheat. Some men know that, and the others raise the kid for decades before they find out. Oops, there's the third sin, lying. Someone suggested to do a DNA test after babies are born here. Women were mad. I was laughing. Why do you care if you know that your husband is the father? Truly, why do you care? Besides, hospitals can make mistakes. Doctors can make mistakes, and babies can be mixed up. So being child-free means you follow the Bible more. Lol. You don't cheat to get pregnant. You don't lie to your husband and your kid about who their father is. You don't have a kid you can provide for. Ironically, which is why, ironically, sometimes the kindest people are the atheists, while the most judgmental and irritating, overbearing, holier-than-thou, self-righteous idiots tend to be the religious people. I'm going to go out and try to... Alright, let us have a little interlude in which I go for something to eat. I will be back and I will continue reading this. And we are back into this particular podcast, which we started on February 14th, 2026, at around some point between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m., or maybe 10 p.m. And we are back a couple days later in February 19th, 2026. The last comment that we were reading, it was the reply number 5, which basically teaches us that pretty much apparently the most liberal-minded people and the most open-minded people actually are following the commands of God, of Christianity, more than the ones that claim to be. Alright? And also, I love this last comment that I read that says, That's why the concept of religion and being child-free coexists well in my head. What does the Bible teach us? What does the Bible teach us? It teaches us to show kindness. Breeding blindly when there is nothing you can provide for a kid isn't kindness. Oh, and the Bible also tells us not to cheat. Why did I mention that? There is a trick many women have done or suggest that the other women do. When a husband is infertile but the couple wants a child, they tell a woman to cheat. Some men know that, and the others raise the kid for decades before they find out. Oops, there is the third sin, lying! Someone suggested to do a DNA test after babies are born here. Women were mad. I was laughing. Why do you care if you know that your husband is the father? That's not the part that I was remembering, but I believe I like that one has something to do with what I was thinking. Because because the following quote that I'm about to read, and that's the one that I was thinking about, it's a continuation to the reply number 5, which the initial said, let us refresh our memories because we are literally 4 days later. We are literally 4 days later, and it says, the concept of God means nothing to me, and the US economy isn't worth saving. Every reason they come up with invokes an, oh, bless your heart, or an, hey, the adults are speaking. And then one person says again, just another imaginary friend. And then this person says, this other person replying to the main reply says that he's the opposite and he's quite a believer, but he goes to churches and he likes to try different mindsets and different ways of thinking. And for that, I love the last one. They give this long answer that I just read, and then another one says, they forget that there are other virtues and commandments that shouldn't be abandoned at the expense of merely one. That's juvenile thinking. I like this one because it implies that you have to follow all the commandments, you have to follow all the laws, but also you have to do the right thing, even if it is illegal to do so. For example, let us not forget that at some point in history, slavery was legal. And just because it was legal, doesn't mean it is the right thing. During the majority of the 20th century, women weren't allowed to vote, wear jeans, wear pants, wear whatever they wanted, study a degree, open a bank account without their husband's permission or father's permission. They weren't allowed to join the army and so many other things. Therefore, just because it's legal, it doesn't mean it's the right thing. And also, going back to what I was saying, going back to the comment that I was reading, it says, they forget that there are other virtues and commandments that shouldn't be abandoned at the expense of merely one. That's juvenile thinking, and I couldn't agree with this more. For example, there is one quote by a fantastic character played by Edward Norton, King Baldwin IV, from the movie The Kingdom of Heaven. I believe that's the name. Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, portrayed in the movie The Kingdom of Heaven, directed by... Who's the director? Let's find out quickly. Allow me to open quickly Google. Allow me to quickly open a search engine to double check. The director and the year that it was released. Alright, King Baldwin, Kingdom of Heaven. In the 2005 film Kingdom of Heaven, King Baldwin IV, portrayed by Edward Norton, is the respected, leprosy-stricken King of Jerusalem from the years 1174 to 1185. Wow, just 11 years. Long story short, he fights to maintain peace with Saladin, or Salahadin, however you pronounce this. One more time, and the movie was released in 2005, and it was directed by whom? Who was the director? Actor Edward Norton. But what about the director? Quickly, give me the director, please. The director is... oh, come on. Ridley Scott. Haha, a fantastic movie showing the best representation ever of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And I don't know if I heard it right one time, but I believe that Ridley Scott is an atheist, I think. And I'm not sure about that. If anyone watching or listening to this audio can fact check what I say and write it in a comment below, I would appreciate this a lot. Alright? Let's find out what Google says. Is Ridley Scott an atheist? And the answer that the AI generates says yes. Renowned filmmaker Sir Ridley Scott has identified as an atheist, although he has occasionally described his stance as an agnostic or a non-believer in interviews regarding his films. He has stated that his lack of belief in religion aids his storytelling by forcing him to ensure the narrative is convincing, even while directing biblical epics like Exodus, Gods and Kings. And let us not forget the one I just talked about, the Kingdom of Heaven. Oh, and before I forget, why do I mention the movie Kingdom of Heaven? Well, I mention that because there is this amazing quote by King Baldwin II, the one that says something like, let me find it, I know it's here. Why do I mention this quote by King Baldwin? Because that reminds me to the previous Reddit comment that I read, the one that says they forget that there are other rules, virtues, and commandments that shouldn't be abandoned at the expense of merely one. That's juvenile thinking, and I couldn't agree more, because they're basically something in the lines that you shouldn't lie, you shouldn't kill others, you shouldn't commit adultery, you shouldn't do to others what you don't want being done to you. Comma, it basically boils down to that. Sorry, I said comma because I have been getting used to. I'm used to using the voice-to-text software of my phone to write because I'm too lazy to type. Anyway, back to this. It boils down to basically be a good person, be objectively good, morally good, and don't do to others what don't want being done to you. And also be responsible for your actions. As for the quote that this last comment reminded me, it's this one that says, a king may move a man, a father may claim a son, but remember that even when those who move you be kings or men of power, your soul is in your keeping alone. When you stand before God, you cannot say, but I was told by others to do thus or that. Virtue is not, or that virtue was not convenient at the time. This will not suffice. Remember that. Personally, I like this quote because, well, it talks about you should basically do the right thing, even if it ends up being the end of your life. Something along these lines. Which basically means that, well, how can we connect this to what I'm talking about, which is the child-free lifestyle, that they live their lives and they face the consequences of their actions, which are actually positive. By not having kids, they manage to have a peaceful life, a calm existence, a normal living, and a peaceful, active or sedentary lifestyle, as I do right now, as of the moment that I'm recording these audios. With that info out of the way, let's continue with the answer number 6. Let's move on to the reply number 6, alright? But before we read it, let us remember well the topic that we are reading today, which is basically we are reading replies to "you're being selfish." The sentence "you're being selfish" mentioned and said out loud by people with kids towards people that choose to remain child-free, which is frankly the best decision you can make these days. And they hate you for living your life as they would have liked. With that out of the way, let's go back to reply number 6. It says, my great-grand had 10 kids. I bet that if I could have sat down and talked with her, woman to woman, she'd said, I'm glad my granddaughters have a choice. Once again, these days the liberties that girls take for granted, the liberties that they have right now, such as wearing however they want, painting their hair whatever they want, studying the career that they want, or studying a career in the first place. What else? Having a career and not having to become a housewife as a default life path. What else? What else? What else? Opening a bank account without the permission of a male guardian and other liberties that they have, but we shouldn't take for granted. I'm not a woman, and I know that I appreciate the liberties that we have. All right? One more time. If my grandma could say that to my mom, maybe she would be happy that she had the choice to get married whatever she wanted. My mom married my dad at the age of 28 and 27. So, talk about life planning and stuff like that. One more time. Do not take for granted the liberties that you have right now. And many of these liberties exist there thanks to feminism, alright? Feminism at its core is a noble cause. It's just that it is quite often misjudged and confused with misandry, which it does exist. However, consider that sometimes the atrocities that men commit are harsher and more severe than the ones committed by women, which also exist. But anyway, we'll talk about that debate much later, because right now I would love to continue with the answer number 7, because this is quite direct and straight to the point. Straight to the kill, if you will. Because this one says, then I guess I'm selfish and I don't care. They can call me whatever they want to. The first step towards anybody's ridiculous attempts to shame you is not giving a fuck. Well, of course I'm selfish and I couldn't care less. Call me what you want because just I don't care. That was the answer number 7. Alright, that was the answer number 7. The next answers are probably quite fast and straight to the point, because apparently they are actually quite simple and short answers. Short answers to which I can reply and comment quite fast, because the next one says, reply number 8. It says, I'm supposed to let dead people peer pressure me? Of course not. Some traditions are good and objectively endearing, while other traditions maybe are not the best ideas. Let us keep that in mind, shall we? Let us keep that in mind, shall we? Now, with this information, let's continue towards... let's continue with the next answer, which is... Let me check. Answer number 9. Oh, but back to the comment that I was reading, sorry. I suppose I am supposed to let dead people peer pressure me? Ha! Of course not. Some traditions are objectively good and endearing. I mean, I'm Mexican, and one great tradition is without a doubt a few dishes like capirotada. Oh my god, that's a name I haven't heard in years. And those are grandma recipes that shouldn't be lost in the first place. Oh my god. And a lot of Christmas dishes, you know? Capirotada. 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 Traditional Mexican dessert with a lot of religious symbolism. It's made with, what do we have? Bread representing the body of Jesus Christ. Oh my god, what do you call this? Sugar-based item whose translation I don't know. I'm gonna say the names in Spanish. I'm so sorry. Common ingredients: bread, ingredientes comunes: pan, jarabe de piloncillo, canela, clavos de olor y queso. Una delicia. Ingredientes comunes: pan, miel, jarabe, frutos y frutas, queso. ¡Qué rico! Now, let's see if I can translate some of these delicious ingredients. Bread, some... Oh my god, how do you translate that? Let me check. Apparently the translation is the same. But anyway. Sugar tablet, I suppose that's what you call it. Sugar bar called piloncillo. What are the other ingredients of the capirotada? Oh my god. Some sweet spices and condiments, some cheese, some bread, some honey, fruits and cheeses, fruits like raisins and stuff, and cheese. A traditional dessert with religious meaning. The religious meaning is totally secondary. The important thing here is the food. Of course, it's the food. Who cares about the one more time? Who cares about the religious connotation? On the one hand, you can also say, nah, help me, help me, help me. The religious connotation is secondary. The last thing you should do is to let be peer pressure religiously by dead people. But this is one tradition that I consider as a Mexican worth saving. So back to the question that I was reading. Am I supposed to let dead people peer pressure me? Absolutely not. You should be selective about what traditions to preserve and what traditions to let go. For example, I can't believe I'm having to I am saying this, but considering the scandals of horrible rich people in the Epstein list, it's not a good idea to do horrible acts on children. Horrible acts that basically the characters, real life characters or fictional characters from the French novel by the Marquis de Sade, super rich people decide to go to a remote location and do horrible things. Do horrible things to a lot of people that they abduct, and they proceed to do a lot of horrible things that are just for the mere objective of pleasure. Yeah, it's not okay to do horrible things such as marrying children. It's not okay. All right? Anyway, with that information out of the way, let us move on to the next reply, which is reply number 8. Reply number 9, sorry. Reply number 9. And the reply number 9 says something like this. Give me a second. Oh, I found it. Thank you very much. It says, my ancestors couldn't even parent their kids properly. Fuck them! If my decision to not procreate hurts them so badly, then good. You make my life awful. You make my life awful. Time for payback, bitches! Do you know what is irritating for me? The fact that you're not using proper punctuation. People, there's my pet peeve whenever I make this type of podcasts. There is my pet peeve every time I make this sort of podcasts. And that thing is precisely the improper use of punctuation, and which includes periods and commas. Semicolons and colons are secondary. However, I'm serious, alright? I'm serious. You need to know how to use commas and periods properly so that you can separate the ideas in a proper manner, and so that the person reading your lines can understand what you're saying. So let us read that again. My ancestors couldn't even parent their kids properly. So, fuck them. Exclamation mark. This continues by saying, if my decision to if my decision to not procreate or not to procreate hurts them badly, then good. Oh wait, I didn't see the comma right there. Sorry. I didn't see the comma right there. Well, there's a comma. You made my life awful. There is no period or no... You made my life awful. There is no period. There is no comma right there. Because then he says, or she says, time for payback, bitches. In total, this says, my ancestors couldn't even parent their kids properly. Fuck them. If my decision to not procreate hurts them so badly, then good. You made my life awful. Time for payback, bitches. And that is fantastic, you know? This is also a quite noble effort. This is also quite a noble course of action, because it is far too boring to simply say, I do not wish to have kids, I don't want to start a family. Give me a second. There are other epic answers. There are other epic options that you can potentially say. There is the cliche common phrase that says, I don't want to have kids. It incites discussion and it makes the family pissed. I'm literally translating a meme, but this one perfectly illustrates and summarizes my mindset. Because this says, regular phrase, it's cliche, and it incites and invites discussion, and it makes the family mad. I don't want to have kids. I don't want any kids. I want no kids. Instead, you should say something like, mi linaje se acaba conmigo. Mi linaje se acaba conmigo. I'm literally typing this on Google Translate because I don't know how to say this. My lineage ends with me. My lineage ends with me. Easy to translate. It's classic and at the same time contemporaneous. It's slightly threatening and it sends shivers down the spine. It sends shivers down the spine of whoever is listening. The comments of this one are hilarious because they say something like, my lineage ends with me, makes the wizards of the court think. It's a thought-provoking phrase for everyone in the court, and it gets the spectator, gets the viewer hooked up so that they wait and look forward to the second season. Oh my god. The destiny of my blood comes to an end with my decision. Relego mi tarea de preservar el linaje familiar a alguien más digno que yo. Les digo que sea mi hermano el que tenga hijos. I tell them, I bestow the task of preserving the family lineage to someone far worthier than me. I say that my brother is the one having kids. I love these funny replies because they are connected to... They are connected to this reply at the beginning that I said originally. My ancestors couldn't even parent their kids properly. So fuck them! If my decision not to procreate hurts them so badly, then good. You made my life awful. Time for payback, bitches. Another good phrase that you can say as a payback is this one that one more time it says, I'm gonna read it in Spanish first, and then I'm gonna translate it with Google or DeepL and see what options it gives. Relego mi tarea de preservar el linaje familiar a alguien más digno que yo. I'm telling them that let my brother be the one that has kids. What do you call that action? I'm not sure what you call it. It is relegate. Relegate. How do you pronounce it, Google?
Relegate.
Thank you so much, Google. Can you say that again?
Relegate.
Oh my god. Thank you so much, Google. Now, can you say that in Spanish?
Relego mi tarea de preservar el linaje familiar a alguien más digno que yo. Les digo que sea mi hermano el que tenga hijos relegar.
El que tenga hijos. Besides. Además, mi hermana es la que ya los tuvo, así que no tengo prisa para tener los míos. Aquí entre nos, estuve con una persona que me hizo cambiar de opinión. Pero, oigan, la historia que pasó es para otro lugar, y para otra ocasión, y para otro momento. Y además ya no estoy con esa persona, así que ni modo, la vida sigue. I'll tell you more about that one. I believe I have talked about this. Back to this one. As I was saying a few moments ago, it is my sister has already had 3 kids. Therefore, there's no rush for me to have my own kids. And besides, in this economy, I hardly think so. Yeah, quickly. To summarize what I said in Spanish. I was with someone that made me change my mind, but she broke up with me, so back to the child-free lifestyle. That's another story for another day. Long story short, that's what happened. I'll talk about that more. Oh, back to the translation of this thing. In English, this says,
I delegate my task of preserving the family lineage to someone more worthy than myself. I tell them, let my brother be the one to have children.
You couldn't have said it better, Google. You couldn't have said it better. Oh, by the way, and Tessa, if you're looking or if you're watching this, Tessa, my Nigerian friend that speaks Igbo, if you are listening to this, I say the same phrase in Igbo, and according to Google, this says, Aname enye onyeka ma karjaon we mo oru mke ichakwa ezinulo. Anamagwa magwa ha kanwanye mwokeburu onyega amu umu. Going back to what I was saying, because I usually get so easily distracted with multilingual rants. That was the reply number 9. Let us move on to reply number 10. The next reply perfectly summarizes the old saying that says, misery loves company. Why? Because it says something like, they want us to suffer as much as them. It's not fair that we have fun and they are miserable parents. And once again, the old cliche phrase that says, don't have kids if you can't provide for them. It's absolutely true. Have you seen this economy? Have you seen the way things are? Have you seen how expensive everything is? Have you seen how impossible it is for the new generations born after 2005, Generation Z? How impossible it is for them to buy a house? How impossible, but not, well, how hard, how expensive everything is. And how inflation is affecting us? No, hell no. And so, if I choose not to have kids, haha, suck it. Suck it. I'm going to enjoy my life of traveling wherever I want, when I want, without any limitations. Ha 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 ha. Once again, misery loves company. This reminds me of a horrible quote that perfectly describes people in Twitter. I refuse to call it X, alright? By Vicky from the Fairy Odd Parents. Vicky from the Fairy Godparents, which says, why aren't you miserable? Horrible person. I hope you have an unpleasant passing. I hope you have a miserable life indeed, and that nobody loves you and you end up regretting your actions, but nobody is there to watch you have this growth or this descent into the even deepest bottom, the one that is even deeper than rock bottom. All right. How can someone so despicable say something so horrible? When Vicky says to Timmy Turner in the TV show, the cartoon TV show, The Very Odd Parents, she basically says something like, what's going on? What is it? What happened here? And why aren't you miserable? Fuck you. That's my secret, Vicky. I'm always miserable. That's something that Timmy Turner would say. And that's one comment that I read from the YouTube comments, but that's not the main focus here. Oh yeah, another one. Why aren't you miserable? This could easily be said by Timmy, probably middle school children to the weird kid in school. Oh, and most importantly, regretful parents saying that to child-free people and child-free and childless people living their best lives however they want, how they want, where they want, without having to care about taking care of a little baby human, which is as helpless, which is the most helpless cup in the animal kingdom. All right. With that information, let's move on to the next reply, the one that says, answer number 11 says, good thing I'm an agnostic leaning towards atheism. Plus, with how shit the world is and how much worse it's getting, why would you want to bring a child into it? Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Another person replies that he or she is an atheist, and I'm like, yeah, one more time. Why bring a kid to a world like this in which the economy is so unstable and filled with inflation, alright? Oh my god, a little bit of a pet peeve again. My same pet peeve with these comments, they don't use periods and commas properly. Let's read it again while I edit it in post-production. It says, good thing I'm an agnostic leaning towards atheism. Well, at least he used a period there, right there, properly. Plus, with how shit the world is and how much worse it's getting, comma, rhetorical question that says, why would you want to bring a child into it? Question mark. Question mark. That's so frustrating. And it goes, reply number 2. It says, the next replies are actually long ones. Therefore, that's frankly quite welcome, because the next one says, it's always funny to me when people put the be fruitful and multiply in the context of childbearing. Meanwhile, in the Bible, there is more examples of being fruitful, meaning to use your talents and skills to build on top of what you were given, not to exclusively have kids. Oh my God, there is a funny comic that I once read of a girl having a date with a boy, having a date with a man, with a guy, and she's like, let's have a reading Bible time. Be fruitful and multiply. Comic. The girl is quite good looking and she just caught this guy and they are about to copulate and intimate. I have it saved somewhere in my phone. Let's select a random passage. Be fruitful and multiply. And I don't think that was actually a random passage. And she's like, God wills it, while she is beginning to undress. Ha 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 ha. Random passage. In this one, but going back to the comment that I read in the first place, in this one, the argument about the out of context quote is perfectly applicable because it's open to interpretation and it doesn't have to be exclusive to child rearing. Oh, yay, I found it. Sandra and Wu, it says, it says something like, oh my God. Wait a minute. It says, to show you that this book is full of good advice, I will select and read a random passage from it, the Holy Bible. She opens it and says, and God blessed them and saying, be fruitful and multiply. That was not a randomly selected Bible passage. And she's like, God wills it. Deus vult. Deus vult. Deus vult. Deus vult. She's quite a good-looking girl, but as she's saying God wills it, she begins to undress. In post-production, I'm going to add this comic. But one more time, let us read this again. It's always funny to me when people only put the be fruitful and multiply in the context of childbearing. Meanwhile, in the Bible, there's more examples of being fruitful, meaning to use your talents and skills to build on top of what you were given, not to exclusively have kids. Basically, be a good person, be talented, and use your abilities for good things, alright? If I'm good at making origami, if I'm good at playing music, let's play music to make people happy and also make a little money out of that. That was the reply number, let me check. That was the reply number 12. Now, let's move on to reply number 13. The one that says, it's always... Sorry, I was reading that wrong. Reply number 13. And this one says, let's go. Every time someone brings up the birth rate, my response is, every time someone brings up the birth rate, my response is, that's the government's job. If your government wants more people, they have tools at their disposal to make it happen, like cash, tax incentives, immigration, or fixing the economy. This person wrote everything properly. There is no emphasis on the word fixing the economy, but the one that I put, alright? The one that I put. Considering what the economy is like these days, I would definitely have the approach of not becoming a parent, but being an overseer of my nephews and nieces, especially the ones that were given birth to, especially the ones that were birthed by my sister. My 2 nephews and my 1 beloved niece. My 2 lovely nephews and my 1 adorable niece. I may not be a parent. I may not become a parent, but I could be an overseer. Someone that is like a guardian of sorts, and I wouldn't even be involved that much because if this is my uncle and my mom, it is my uncle and my mom who do the taking care of. That was the number 13, I think. Yep, that was the number 12. With this info, let's move on to number 13. The one that says, out of all the arguments I've ever had, the "you're so selfish" one has made me scratch my head the most. How can I be selfish against someone who doesn't exist? Isn't it way more selfish to force a soul into a mortal body that will inevitably suffer and die someday? Yes, I'm a real riot at parties. Wouldn't it be way more selfish to have a kid I don't even want and resent them? Totally. I agree that what they really mean is, how dare you see through the propaganda and choose to live your life on your own terms while I fail to do the same thing, and I am now stuck with a life I'm dissatisfied with. To be honest, I think that's how I knew I was child-free at such a young age. I understood early on that life is a lot of doing things you don't want to do. I constantly saw people, mostly women, wrangling kids and looking stressed out and miserable, and I realized that this was the one thing I could actually choose to opt out of, unlike school or work. Oh yeah, totally. Totally. Oh, and the first one is fantastic. The one that says, wouldn't it be way more selfish to have a kid I don't even want and resent them? Totally. It would be way better to be child-free and childless, grow up to an old age, and have no kids, and regret it, which is highly unlikely. It is better to have no kids later in life and regret it than to actually have kids and regret it and become a regretful, miserable, exhausted parent. All right. I hope I'm not a kid that makes his mom exhausted. I know I don't, but still, there are too many out there. I'm gonna be arrogant and say something like, there are far too many people who are not as smart and as intelligent and as self-conscious. No, as what's the word? As mentally capable as me, and they end up doing silly things that make their parents disappointed, and rightfully so. But that's another topic for another day. And yes, this sounded arrogant, but let me give you the reassurance that I make sure I do not suffer from the Dunning-Kruger effect. And by the way, that last reply I was reading about this last one that I was reading, I made a little mistake. That was actually the reply number 14. Okay, that was actually the reply number 14. I'm so sorry. Reply number 14. The number 15 is rather gloomy because they are commenting on the direct words of the post. Because of the rise in people not wanting kids, period. That's it. I wish people understood just how many of their ancestors were unwilling wives and unwilling mothers. My grandmother's circumstances didn't afford her a choice on a husband or how many children. So she vigorously praised those of us who knew at an early age what we wanted and didn't let others sway our decision. Again, this is like the previous comment I said about how all the liberties that girls and women today take for granted. They should remember that their grandmas fought for it, all right? And so therefore, if your grandmother wants to eat a piece of bread, a loaf of bread with some sugary coffee, let her do it. She already has lived her life, she fought for her right to vote, and she probably has no orgasms at this point in her life. Therefore, you might as well let her eat her little piece of bread. uh, with that info, let's move on to a few more, and that's gonna be the end of it. That's gonna be the end of it. Oh, shoots. That's gonna be the end of it. The following answers will be quite fast because let's read them fast and then make comments. Let's go. Reply number 16. My favorite arguments they make is, but your bloodline and you'll end up alone in a nursing home. Plot twist. My mom worked in nursing homes for 27 years. You know what she noticed? She noticed plenty of people with multiple kids were dumped there. The kids never visit. So yeah, having kids guarantees nothing. There are two possibilities. Well, three maybe. Two possibilities, but maybe three. But the first one is maybe the kids are actually too busy with life and that's why they don't come to visit. Or maybe they're also actually ungrateful brats. They are actually ungrateful children that dump their parents there. Or maybe there is a possibility that the parent was actually a horrible, narcissistic, condescending, unloving, unkind, or despicable person that truly deserves no sympathy whatsoever. Alright? Think about maybe Beverly Hofstadter from the TV show The Big Bang Theory. Horrible, horrible, horrible witch that totally deserved to be suffering her divorce with a lot of grief and despicable circumstances, which basically boiled down to her not being a loving spouse or not being a loving person at all. The other person, fuck you. Audrey McAllister from also another show connected to the Big Bang Theory. Fuck you, Beverly Hofstadter. Fuck you, Audrey McAllister, who is, by the way, played by the actress Rachel Bay Jones. Curse you and bless be Rachel Bay Jones. You polished, artistic, nicely chiseled piece of beauty and acting prowess. This one, by the way, is of course angry praise because your acting is so good that basically everyone that watched the character in the TV show despises it with all their hearts. All right, that's the mark of a good actor. You have to remember that. If you hate the character, if you hate the character played by the person, then the actor or actress is actually good. Also, why not? Fuck you, slappable jerk. Fuck you, slappable jerk. Slappable jerk, which is the name of a fantastic YouTube channel owned by an actor called Jack Ryan. All right, he is well known for creating relatable satirical comedy sketches, often focusing on cringing, condescending, or obnoxious, slappable character types on TikTok and YouTube. For instance, the boomer that ignores that other people exist, or the rude rich kid devoid of empathy. Probably the elders that don't get any visits in the nursing homes likely were horrible people. They were horrible. They were not nice parents who now are estranged with their adult children, and the adult children are no contact for a lot of good reasons. All right. Those are the things that could happen. All right. That was the reply number 16, I think. Yeah, that was the reply number 16. The next reply is rather short, but it's a perfect criticism of the system that we live in, which is the cursed capitalismus system. And by the way, before you jump in, because we know how cringy the US is, criticizing capitalism does not make you inherently a communist. Alright, I love being able to buy whatever I want, when I want, whatever I want, when I want, however I want. But consumerism is not okay. This one says, the panic over the decline in birth rate is really a crisis of capitalism, not a crisis of human survival. Yeah, truly. We are not gonna die or going extinct. We're not gonna go extinct. It's highly unlikely. And even if we did, the planet is going to continue existing. We, not really. That was the reply number 17. Normally, I would not include this yawning in the podcast, in this audio. However, since I want this to be as natural as possible, I'm going to include that one. Do you know what else I'm going to include? I'm going to include 8 more answers. Thank you. These ones apparently are rather long. The next one is good indifference and realistic mindset because it says, reply number 18 says, I seriously doubt my ancestors would give 2 shits. On the paternal side, I'm Native American. On the paternal side, Native American. And that was reply number 18. Again, I seriously doubt my ancestors would give 2 shits. On the paternal side, Native American. On the maternal side, snobby French people who got axed in the revolution. You say axe, I would personally use the word guillotined. Alright? Let's continue with a few more. And it says, they just can't get over. Yeah. Ancestors, who cares? They're dead. Reply number 19. This one is a little long and it says, they just can't get over that having kids is completely optional today in the modern world. The birth rate often falls in developed countries because there comes a point with progress that having kids is not necessary to have a complete and fulfilling life. Yeah, I literally cannot name one damn thing where having a kid would advantage my life in any way. Yet I can name several things, several ways in which it would disadvantage me. Not even the old who will take care of you when you're older holds any ground. You can literally pay people to do that for you, which I plan to do, and there will be even more options by the time I will actually need care. That was a fantastic reply, and to that I say, yeah, it's totally optional these days. And one thing I hope, based on the thing that he said or she said about paying people to take care of him or her when she or he grows old, I would say something like, let us hope that euthanasia becomes legal for humans. Becomes legal for humans a few decades from now. It's almost done. Alright. And one possible final reply. 3 short replies as a last 20 reply number 20, 21, 22, and 23, 21, 22, and 23. In one single point, I'm going to read 3 short answers. And they say, if God wanted me to procreate, is there anything I could possibly do to prevent his plans from coming into fruition? Obviously, I'm following God's plan. Me, when religious morons claim anything I'm doing is wrong. Wow, that was fantastic. It's a good comeback. Then we have another one that says, it's very short, and it says, I guess I'm lucky that I simply cannot imagine what I would care about what other people want me to do with my genitals. Absolutely. They also bring up religion and how God made us to procreate. Why did God make me or made us not to want to then? They can blame him, not us. Why did God make us not want to then? Why did God make me or us not want to then? Lol. They can blame him, not us. He's the one that made me this way, so blame him, not me. That was fantastic. A table turner, and a guilt shifter. I think I'm gonna stop right there because I don't want this to be too long. The episodes are usually 1 hour. Besides, editing this is usually a nightmare. An enjoyable one, but a nightmare nonetheless. even if this is going to be quite simple to do. And this is going to be a little different. With that out of the way, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for coming and joining us. And most importantly, please write down your comments in the comment section of this video. This video, which will be uploaded maybe a couple weeks from now, or maybe more. Thank you so much for being here with us in this attempt of a podcast. There was an attempt to make a podcast, and this is the attempt number 7. And this is the attempt number 7. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Farewell.